Welcome to the Children's Grand Rounds, the fourth of 2008, and the first without coats, hats, boots, snow. A lot to be happy about. Yay. First, I wanted to let you know that we're going to be videotaping. All of the Grand Rounds are videotaped. The camera is focused on the speaker, so none of you will be in the picture. I just wanted to reassure you or disappoint you about that. Second, in your folders today, you'll see a copy of the Grand Rounds in May. What's important about that is that we're starting pre-registration, and that's required from here on out. You can fill that out and turn it in at the registration desk, or you can go online and register. Yes?
What if I don't want to attend in May, I want to attend in June?
You'll be able to register for June. You can go online and register. This is just for May, and you can do it online as well. All Grand Rounds will be pre-registered, and the online address is there. So if you look in your folders, this is for May, and the registration is on the back. Also, the where you go, RSVP at vceonline.org for future registrations. Okay? Also, you're going to find a 3x5 card for questions, and we ask that you, if you have questions, that you fill that out, pass them to the center. We'll have someone collecting those, and we'll answer questions at the end rather than during the presentation. That's been a request that's come from you, the participants, that we hold questions to the end. So you can fill out your card and pass that in. There's an evaluation sheet in your program. It's yellow, and it looks like this. It's very important for two reasons. We want to hear from you what you think about these educational presentations, whether they meet your needs, whether your questions get asked. We also want to know about future presentations. And the other important thing about this is that you need to complete this fully and turn it in before you can get your certificate of attendance. And that's needed to get your continuing education credits. So this is your evaluation form. For nurses and MDs, be sure to sign in. There's a separate CME table, and not only do you have to sign in there, you have to sign in with the VCE sign-in as well. Today we're going to take a little time to go over continuing education questions and answers for social workers. Next time we'll do it for nurses and physicians. But there seem to be a lot of questions about how you accrue your CEs and how you hold on to your certificates when they're turned in and how that relates to your licensing. So we're going to talk about that today. But some other important administrative issues. We ask during your presentations that you turn your phone off unless you are on call, and then you turn it to vibrate. And if you have to leave, that you do so quietly, not to interrupt the presentation. Okay. In your folders, there's a handout that covers important information about continuing education credits. And this is for social workers, for LBSWs and for LMSWs, all of you who are licensed. For limited licensed people, a continuing education is not required because you have your important supervision requirements, but it is encouraged. This is the beginning of your professional career and a good time to start your continuing education. I'd like to go over a few of these things, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them after the presentation. I'm just going to highlight a few of the things on the handout. First, you must sign in before these educational programs in order to get your credits with your license number. And you need to know whether or not you're an LMSW or an LBSW, but you need to have your license number. And the other thing that we ask is that you put your full name. If your middle initial is J, please put Sally J. Smith. You'd be surprised how many names that that are in common. And so if you're missing a presentation, participant list or participant certification of attendance and you want a copy, we don't know who you are unless you put your full address and you put your full name. So put middle initials too, if you will. That'll help us out a great deal. Arrive on time and stay through the completion of the program. This is a continuing education requirement by the state. So if you come in 45 minutes late or leave 30 minutes late, you will be docked from your credit. That's a requirement of us by the Michigan Association of the Michigan Social Work Continuing Education Collaborative and the Licensing Board. Okay, in terms of CE credits, you get credits for 1 hour of instruction, at least 50 minutes of that has to be full instruction. You are required to get 45 credits per 3-year licensing cycle, and your cycle starts at the date on your license. If you don't have a license or you've lost your license, you can get that from the Michigan Department of Community Health. It's important to know when your licensing cycle starts. You have 3 years to get those 45 hours. If you attend grand rounds for 2 years, you're already there. You've got 48 hours accrued. You're also required to have 5 hours of ethics and 1 hour of pain management. There are other allowances made for online, and that is usually 10 hours per cycle. So also for publications and for presentations. I'm not going to elaborate on that. It's in your handout. What's required is that you keep your documentation in a file. Now's the time to start your own professional portfolio so that everything you attend you keep in your file. You're not required to send it in when you renew your license. But when you renew your license, it says that you are certifying, you are attesting to having done what's required for your licensing. So when you send it in, that means that you said that you've done the 45 hours. There's a random audit that's done, it will begin in '09, that's done of all social workers. 10% will just be randomly pulled, and they'll ask you to send in your documentation to prove that you've gotten your 45 hours. So unless you get that letter, you don't need to do anything but collect your certifications and keep them in your own file. It's your responsibility to do that. We hope to have at the VCE, from our registrations and our online sign-ins, a way to send you listings of all the courses that you've taken and the dates and the credits and so on. That's something that will be coming in the next year. But it's still also incumbent upon you to have this kind of folder available. And all of that audit information is provided on this form. If you do not have your 45 hours, you are then in violation, and you would have to negotiate with the licensing board a fee, you'd have to make up the courses, and so on, and that's outlined here. On the blue sheet of paper, it's information about your CEU certificate update. For all of you that have attended grand rounds in '07, certificates will be distributed at the June 19th grand rounds. So when you get your certificate, you'll have clipped to that other certificates if you have not yet received them from '07. The '07 has been approved, and we want to get that distributed to you. Some of you may have received them in the mail. Some were sent out to your agencies, but if you have not, it should be available at the next grand rounds. If you don't attend that grand rounds, you can go to info@vceonline.org after July 1st, and we should be able to help you out with that. And again, at the bottom, when you're registering, use your middle initial, use a home address if there's room for it on the form that you fill out, complete an email, and give us your phone number. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions after today, or if you'd like to give me a call at the Virtual Center of Excellence, I'm happy to answer questions there too about your CEUs and about licensing. Okay, so let's get on with our program today. I'd like to introduce Megan Clore, who is the Child and Family Programs Manager at Lincoln Behavioral Service.
Good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about the demonstration project and how to make referrals, and then I'm going to introduce the people that are here on the panel. And it's a very good time in Wayne County for children to receive services from pregnant to the age of 6. We're very excited that there's been an expansion of services to include 7 agencies, and those agencies are the Children's Center, Development Center, Lincoln Behavioral Services, Northeast Guidance Center, the Guidance Center, Southwest Counseling Solutions, and Starfish Family Services. Now, each of those agencies, the staff receives specific training. We've received a lot of training so that we can be, the best in the field when it comes to working with infants and their parents. And each staff is also going through a certification process with MyAIM. So at the end of this year, Carrie, there's supposed to be how many? 40, hopefully? Up to 40 that'll be infant mental health certified. So when you make a referral and we get that referral, you can know that the staff are specifically trained and are going to be doing an excellent job. You guys can't hear me? My staff know I'm loud. Okay. How to make referrals. In your packet, there is an eligibility criteria page, and so in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over each of those. As we go through the panel, you're going to hear case studies, and so that'll give you a good idea of the type of clients to refer. But if you want to do a referral, contact any of those 7 agencies, and Carol just told me that the Virtual Center for Excellence is going to have each of the agencies online so that you can get the number to contact for referral sources. Each family has an option to participate in a project with Eastern Michigan University. It's voluntary, they don't have to. What we'd like to do is have research on what we're doing as far as effectiveness. And then towards the end, our goal is to be certified as an evidence-based practice. Right now, we're called what you would call a promising practice. And so through the research that they're doing at Eastern Michigan University, the results so far are very positive, and the work that we're doing is effective. Okay, now I'm going to introduce the panel. Okay, first we have Catherine Lenz. Catherine, you can wave. She's the Director of Infant and Young Child Mental Health Services at the Guidance Center, and she's going to be talking a little bit about what infant mental health is and the model that we use, so you can have an understanding of the type of treatment that we're doing within the home. And then we have a case presentation regarding an infant, and that's with Linda Story. And she's from Lifespan Clinical Services, Division of Starfish Family Services, and she's a clinician there. And then we'll have Carol Oleksiak, who is the director of the Virtual Center for Excellence. She'll respond to the case, so she'll be able to provide some case insight. Like I'd said before, by the time we're done, hopefully you'll have a good taste of the type of clients that you need to refer. And then after that, we have Luz Marina Zuniga, who is going to be presenting a toddler case. And she is with Southwest Counseling Solutions, and she's an infant mental health specialist. Okay, next is Catherine.
Good morning. What I'm going to try to do today is give you some understanding, a little taste of our the infant mental health perspective, the principles, and some of the assumptions that we work under, so that you will have a bit of a framework to listen to the case presentations and really get a good understanding of how this model works. Let's start by what is infant mental health. There's 4 questions that are of significance to our model, and that is, when we're thinking, we think about what about the baby? The baby always needs to stay in the forefront of our mind. And then what about the parents who are caring for the baby? Thirdly, what about their developing relationship and the context for their early care? And then finally, what about the practitioner In our practice, it's very important to support the practitioner so that she can do the same for the family. So we're always keeping that in mind. Infant mental health perspective believes that what happens to you very early in your life has an effect on what happens to you later in life. That seems very simplistic, but we always need to keep that in our minds when we're dealing with infants and toddlers. The infant-mother relationship is thought of as our client or patient or consumer. It's sort of a new kind of way of thinking, relatively, in terms of mental health services. And as Winnicott said, there's no such thing as a baby. What we mean is that the clinician can't treat a baby in isolation. We work with the mother and the infant, or the parent and the infant or toddler. I may refer or use mother or him or her. Please don't be offended. It's all, I'm thinking in terms of fathers, caregivers, whoever's the primary caregiver for that infant or toddler that we're working with. Both theory and research point to the centrality of the parent-infant interaction in the psychological development of that child. The way that the baby organizes is through the parent-infant relationship, and that has been suggested and supported by research on both attachment and object relations theory. When you're thinking about attachment at its most basic, simplified definition, we think of that in terms of an enduring, affective bond between the infant and the parent. And the baby uses that attachment to organize their behavior in all aspects, social, emotional, developmentally across the board. I'm going to go through a few of the infant mental health principles now, kind of give you a picture of the way we think. The healthy parent-infant relationship we feel is necessary for the competent, both physical, cognitive, social, emotional development of the infant. All the development takes place within the framework of the interactions. The baby doesn't develop in isolation or alone. It's all in context of the actual relationship with the adult caregivers. Excuse me. An impaired relationship or a disruption, such as an extended separation. You can think of foster care as an example, or other circumstances where there's a long separation. Those things compromise the physical, emotional well-being of the infant, as well as have the impact of impairing their ability to trust and relate with others. It also can impact their behavior in terms of being withdrawn or having impulsive acting out behavior on the other side. Can cause delays in language development, and it can compromise their capacity to explore and learn. The relationship with the parent, the primary caregiver, the healthy relationships allows the child to do all these things in an effective, positive manner, and without that, there's compromises. The parent-infant relationship is reciprocal. Both parties are equally engaged in that. The development evolves from stage to stage based on the parent's reactions and responses to the infant, and the infant's reactions and responses to the parent. While the characteristics of an individual infant are very important to that relationship, the parent still holds the responsibility really for facilitating this secure and healthy attachment. So as the adult, caregiver, they hold the primary responsibility. That's not to say, however, that the infant isn't equally engaged in that relationship, and what the infant brings to it impacts how that goes. Parental nurturing styles and responses to a particular infant, to their child, are derived from the parent's past history. and their own nurturing or experiences, or perhaps their unresolved losses, trauma, etc. So our own history, whatever we bring to that relationship, impacts how we respond and react to the infant. As well as the current stressors or supports in our own lives impact how that relationship is developing. The parent's response to particular characteristics of the infant are also part of how that relationship is working. A parent's capacity, another principle, a parent's capacity to nurture the infant depends on the extent to which she has been supported and nurtured, as well as her ability to use the kind of support that may be available to her. So part of our job is, as infant mental health therapists, is to support the parent and to nurture and hold her so that she can in turn hold the baby and support the baby. So also, infants proceed through both overlapping and sequential stages of development. And the successful accomplishment at one stage leads to typically successful prediction of successful accomplishments of future developmental stages. Sometimes there may be lags or backstage, but typically when you're on a good course, you can move forward. If you're not successfully accomplishing stages of development, that has a high predictability of causing further problems in the later stages. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but it can complicate subsequent steps. Another infant mental health principle is that the birth of a baby offers hopefulness for new relationships and possibilities. People get excited and hopeful and want to do the best for this baby. Michael Trout has 4 primary clinical assumptions that I'd like to share with you. And that is, the first is that infants need a primary relationship with an adult caregiver in order to optimize their chances for adequate health and development. So infants can't survive on their own, but they need a healthy primary relationship. And this relationship should be nurturing and stable and not have frequent or unpredictable separations. Another of his assumptions is that the infant is part of a family system and can't be treated apart from that system. He believes that the parent and the baby will both display the healthy as well as the conflicting parts of their relationship through their interactions together. And so part of our job as infant mental health workers is to observe the relationship and look for those healthy as well as maybe some of the problematic interactions to help support that relationship. This next assumption is that the family is always struggling towards health, even though it may be complicated by conflicts, either from the parent's own history, their infancy, early childhood. And a lot of that is often brought to the surface when they have a baby. When any of us have a baby, a lot of our own history that may have been buried deep and not really thought about often comes to the surface when there's an infant that joins our family. And Trout also believes, and we believe, that the parents probably know the answers to most of the treatment questions. So the therapist is really there to facilitate the parent getting free of their issues, blocks, and help support them in understanding and dealing with those issues, and not there to tell the parents how to be a parent. The parent knows best. With support and guidance and help, they will come to understand what blocks or issues or concerns that they're bringing to that relationship and how to manage that perhaps more effectively.
Hi, we have a number of questions and we're trying to group them. Some of them have to do with services and the agencies. and the referral process. So I'll maybe do that quickly first, and then we have some questions about the specific case. Megan, do you want to speak first about the list of agencies and the referral process and the ages involved?
Having mic problems. Okay, the list of agencies involved, there are 7 agencies, and as Carol said, she's going to be putting all 7 on the Virtual Center for Excellence website. And they include the Children's Center, Development Centers, Lincoln Behavioral Services, Northeast Guidance Center, the Guidance Center, Southwest Counseling Solutions, and Starfish Family Services. Okay. If you want to see me after, I do have a limited number of brochures that have all of the agencies on them. I think I only have about maybe 100. So if you're with the same agency, you can share them, but I do have them so you can see me after and I can give them to you. The brochures have all the names of the agencies, the phone numbers, and it describes a little bit about our services. Oh, making referrals, sorry. When you make referrals, what you want to do is contact the numbers that are listed. Once again, if you see me, you can have a brochure. And then generally what you want to ask for is, each agency is a little different. Some agencies have what they call access centers or intake departments. I know at Lincoln Behavioral Services, what you'll do is you'll ask for the intake department, and then you can talk to the intake worker and discuss that you have a client that's interested in infant mental health services. And then they'll know what to do from there. So generally what you do is call the agency, let them know that you have a referral for infant mental health services, and then the process can go from there. There are a couple, like I said, each agency handles things a little differently. Generally what happens is I ask people to send a release when they send their referral, and I'll tell you why. Because if you don't send a release and you call the agency saying, you know, so-and-so needs services, we can't call you back and let you know that they've actually completed the intake process because we don't have a release. So sometimes people refer and they say, oh, I referred a couple months ago, we never heard back from you. I don't have a release. I can't, you know, talk to you about if the family followed through or not. The other issue is they have to meet the eligibility criteria, which is in your packet. And if, I know at Lincoln, I'm pretty sure at the other agencies, if they don't meet the criteria for some reason, they can enter into either a child and family program or we can help the parent access services that are appropriate. Okay, there's just a couple other questions regarding programmatic services. What is the exact age range for infancy? Depends on each of the programs and what their services are. 0 to 3 is for the demonstration project. Most agencies have 0 to 6 as part of their home-based program. So that's one question. The other, which I think is a hot topic, do children receive psychiatric evals, and are they assessed, and do they receive psychotropic medication? I can only answer for Lincoln. I can't answer for the other agencies. Generally, that young, we would not recommend psychotropic medication. If there was an extreme need, they could be evaluated. Anyone younger than 3, I think we want to try an intervention first before we try psychotropic medications. But once again, that's up to each individual agency. I would say no.
Here's another question. Would you name other evaluation resources, for example, Ages and Stages questionnaire? I can tell you that in Wayne County, infant mental health specialists are trained observers. This takes a very long time to learn, but they have a lot of support, so they're able to be very observant to understand parent-child interactions, who's contributing, who's not contributing, where babies are placed in the room. Development, they have to train themselves and are trained and supported in child development. The state has been doing an ongoing standards of care for infants through the age 7. And I actually sat on that state committee, and we spent a lot of energy looking at evaluation tools for infant mental health services. So for example, people who serve children 7 and above use the CAFAS as one of their tools. We were looking for all the tools that would be appropriate for very, very young children. And we settled on a few of them, which are about to be piloted throughout the state. Agencies are being asked to volunteer. It just depends on the expertise of the clinician. Some clinicians are trained in the Denver, some are trained in the home, which is an assessment of home environment. Some of us are trained on the Bailey scales of infant development. I'm trying to think, is there any? The IDA, that we use the IDA, that's a great developmental assessment. I said the Bailey. And when the state makes the decision, all infant mental health programs, of which there are at least 35 across the state, will be using these assessments. I think they're looking at one that assesses parent-child interaction, which has I can't remember the name. I think they call it the Piccolo or something, but those are the assessments that are being used. We also use videotape. I don't know that every program uses videotape, but it's very important to videotape families and their babies together, and then it allows you to have another way to look at the child's development. Carrie, do you want to say something? I know it's the PECFAS. Do you have it? I didn't bring it with me. Right. The DECA IT, I know that's one of them. The PECFAS, which is for little kids. The Devereaux Early Childhood Assessment for infants, toddlers, and young children. The Massey-Campbell Scale of Mother-Infant Attachment Indicators During Stress. The Parent Interactions with Children Checklist of Observations Linked to Outcome. That's the Piccolo. And I think that's what we're looking at. That's for children birth to 47 months. So that's currently where we are with that. Thanks, Carrie. I have another question here I can't do in 1 second. How to deal with nightmares and screaming of a child at night at age 21 months. The first thing I advise parents to do is to get a complete medical history with their home medical provider, because we can't start working together around behavioral issues unless I know there are no neurological things going on. I need the medical community to do a complete assessment. Often, those of us who do this work will go with the family to that medical appointment so we can support them as they try to explain to doctors what their worries are, what their concerns are. Because often parents aren't listened to, or they're told that's no big deal, that's a stage, that's a terrible twos, and we just don't accept that. So we support the parents. That's one of those 5 strategies, advocacy, in their meetings with the pediatricians, if they so want that. They have to agree to that. And then I would start there. And then there's all kinds of behavioral techniques that one can do. I'll give you a very quick experience I had with a little one about that age that was having extreme night terrors. And was found out that this young little guy had partial hemisphere seizures, which caused night terrors and sleeplessness. And the minute he was treated for that, it went away, and the parents began to relax, and he was put on the right medication. So first rule, go with their medical home care doctor.
I just wanted to add something about that situation, because I was doing that with my case. And it's just to review routines. Where is the room? where the child is sleeping with, what time, TV habits, that kind of stuff. Simple things first, and then all the other part. I have a question here is, where is my agency, and are they taking new applications? For clients, for professionals? Here is my supervisor. Southwest Counseling Solutions is in Southwest Detroit. I'm very happy to tell you that infant mental health program has been suspending. We are 3 professionals working in this community, and we are open to take new cases at this time. And I don't know if new professionals at this time, but yeah.
I just want to thank you so much as the director for the Center for Excellence who makes these happen. I have a phenomenal staff that tries to attend to all your comforts for this. These are all on our website, which will be majorly launched soon. I'll be trying to post questions on the website with longer, detailed answers. It's all to come to make your lives easier as you do your good work in our community. Thank you so much.